sang and all this stuff. Like, get me a drink. I said, get yourself, you're near to the bar. Coiscéim, pretty bar.
What here is, there's fear fáilte. Fáilte gacéine, fáilte gohartha bhíl agus winter bhíl as Baile go hánig an lucht, carta agus guest specialta. Anyway, Tránó náling agus as an dánarí beth Baile the céile lucht. Now, kunst for you on go, which are right? Sure. Cover is Mícheál Jim McNamara, this Shannonside, Mícheál. This rogue over here and myself, we soldiered together. Oh God, a couple of decades ago. We'll just say a couple of decades ago, not too far from here, in certain little, what would be now considered musty buildings, which certain people turned into kind of cauldrons of creativity with motley teenagers, and we rambled around the banks of the Shannon, and we chased poetry and we chased nature, and we had great old fun. So that's kind of the reason why he landed me here tonight, is because we're both clinging on to those special moments going back a couple of decades ago in a lovely little place up along the banks of the Shannon. We won't tell you where it is, but it's a lovely little spot. So that's hence Mícheál. Anyway, that's irrelevant now. But what we're really here for is that on Fair Shaw, this guy had the gift of kind of keeping the two eyes open, the 2 ears open, the pen going, and nourishing the muse and keeping the passion right up along through the years. And this thing is gone, did it? No, it's not. Anyway, he's actually captured those moments in this lovely creation here tonight, which is called Redshank, which is the main reason why we're here. And I think perhaps the night that's in it, in the month of May, we're also here, well, to celebrate life, to celebrate creativity, to celebrate health, to celebrate the river, that lovely place, the mayflies, and that Shannon River and Limerick and Sceilg and the Forriga, and they're all captured in a very, very inclusive, a very, very lower saoirse, full of wisdom, of freedom, of energy, which is in here too. So, Kelura Tagesh. Now, people to assist us in this, obviously, I'm just Cathal for the moment, but right in front of me here, we're delighted to have three very special guests who are going to say a few words to you. We have the man who assisted in the publishing here besides Dominic. We have Eoin Devereux over here who will do the formal, proper, academic and thorough and ethic kind of a launch. And we also have Mícheál, who is around. Siobhan is somewhere. Siobhan, people? Siobhan, no. That one, yeah. So, without any more delay, I would just like to introduce Dominic Taylor, who is here with us. Now, Dominic is directly instrumental in this coming to life, because Dominic is one of these people who actually innovates and creates, and they call them social entrepreneurs as a fancy name put on them nowadays, But Dominic is co-founder of the Writers' Centre in Limerick, which goes back a long, long time, and he's also director and manager of the place. And for people who are not familiar, that is an open door facility for people of all abilities who have an interest in writing. It has published over, I think, 70 books or something like that. So we kind of consider him a bit like a midwife for writers. And there's sort of the track of his forceps is down here at the bottom of that book. If you bought it already, you'll see the Writers' Centre of Limerick down here. Dominic is, as well as being the publisher, he runs courses, he runs workshops, and particularly he's involved with the Poetry Literary Circle, which meets monthly, called On the Nail. Tis on the nail, isn't it? So Dominic, delighted to have you here. Fear fortune. I give you Dominic here.
Okay, thanks Jim. And again, thanks to all of you for coming out here tonight to celebrate the publication of Mícheál's latest novel, Redshank. As publishers of Michael's book, I just want to set out the role of the Limerick Writers' Centre. Basically, what we try to do is bring ideas about books, literature and writing to as wide an audience as possible. Our core value has always been that literature is essential. We believe in the love of writing, in the art of writing, and in the power of the literary arts to transform individual lives and communities. We work to advance the artistic development of writers, and we try to foster a thriving literary community. And I think the shortlisting in 2016 of one of our writers, Ron Kerry, a poet from the largely working class estate of Ballinanty in Limerick, for one of the most prestigious literary awards in Ireland and the UK, the Forward Prize, is some evidence of our success in trying to foster an inclusive reading and writing community. The poet Robert Frost said that the delight in writing is the surprise of remembering something I didn't know I knew, that results in a clarification of life and a momentary stay against confusion. Now that encapsulates in a small way what we try to do for our writers. The book we are launching tonight is the 74th title the Limerick Writers Centre has published since 2008 under its community publishing initiative. At the Limerick Writers Centre, we share a belief that writing and publishing should be made both available and accessible to all. We try as much as possible to represent diverse voices and advocate for increased writing and publishing access to individuals and groups that may not typically have had this access. We encourage everyone to engage actively within the literary community. Through public performances, we bring together groups of people who value literature not just for its literary value, but who see its transformative power both for the individual and society. And we believe that stories, poems, diaries, memoirs do, as Seamus Heaney suggests, function as bearers of value. We are importantly dedicated to printing short-run, high-quality produced titles that are accessible to readers. And we actively encourage writers, from the serious career-minded to people who write for pleasure, healing, personal growth, insight, or just to inform. And over the years, we have produced a broad range of writing, including poetry, history, memoir, and general prose. We believe that writing and literature, whether in the form of poetry or prose, in the words of the US poet Philip Levine, matters in the way it has always mattered, to make sense out of our emotional lives. Through our publishing, through our workshops, and through our public reading events, we want, in the words of the French philosopher, author and journalist Albert Camus, we want to bear witness to that in all of us which wants to live, which refuses to die. Hence, we are delighted to publish Mícheál Ó Siochrú. Mícheál is a highly respected writer in 2 languages, of poetry and prose. He has honed his craft over many years, and his words show the benefit of his lived experience. They're not time-worn or cliched, but full of strength and life. And I know, as readers, that you are going to love this book, and that every one of you will feel that life and strength on every page as you read. And that is why the Limerick Writers' Centre are so delighted to be the publishers of Redshank. So once again, I'm very pleased, despite Liverpool and Real Madrid being on TV, to see so many of you here tonight to support Mícheál and the launch of his book. Thank you very much.
Dominic, agus Fina focail sin an lá God, that whole power of life and strength does ooze right through this, so you will be uplifted definitely by this book. Anyway, more of that, but from our next guest for the night. Eoin Devereux is a professor of sociology at UL. He specialises in media and in particularly pop and music media. He has a wide range of interests, frequently commenting and writing on the national newspapers as well. He's also a poet and a curator, and he has recently been shortlisted for a very prestigious Hennessy New Ireland Poetry Award. So, Eoin, fáilte rud.
Cathal Ó Siochrú agus a cóide, Dominic Taylor agus an Furan ó Limerick Writers' Centre, fáilte isteach go dtí an ostáin áileann seo, ostáin Castletroy. Is mór an óir lamsa a bheith glónseáil an uorscéil nua Redshank, ón scríbhneoir, múntóir agus file Mícheál Ó Siochrú. Nuair a bhí mé ag léamh an leabhar nua seo an teach na Sicáte, bhain mé tanmh mór leabhar cliste agus grianfar. Distinguished guests, the Siochrú family, friends, Dominic Taylor and the team from the Limerick Writers' Centre, and Mícheál in particular, you are all very welcome to the Castletroy Park Hotel here this beautiful May evening. I'm honoured, delighted, really, really genuinely honoured to be launching Mícheál's beautifully written novel Redshank, a book which is all at once very clever, wise, poetic, and really, really very funny. It's a really, really funny read, even though it deals with, the darker side of human experience and so on, but a very, very funny book. Taréis an nollaig queer Mícheál Gleichem, and he asked me if I would launch Redshank, and I don't mean this in a sort of a smart way, I get asked to do lots of things, and I often say no. As soon as I heard that it was Mícheál on the phone, I said absolutely, immediately. I confirmed that I would be delighted to launch Redshank, and I really am honoured to have been asked to do this. One of the key reasons I've long respected Mícheál's work as a poet in particular, and a particular reason why I would have committed straight away to launching this fine book is that Mícheál was a very close friend of my late uncle, the poet, historian and writer Seamus Ó Siochrú. Indeed, when Seamus passed away on St. Stephen's Day in 1992, Mícheál responded with 2 beautiful poems honouring Seamus and his multifaceted life. Mícheál noted in one of those really beautiful poems that the gates of heaven are more open at Christmas time, and that an untamed spirit, like my dear uncle Seamus, might easily slip through unnoticed at Christmas tide. Mícheál, like my late uncle Seamus, is a Renaissance man. He is a teacher, a poet and a novelist. He writes as Sceilg and in English, and as one of the previous speakers said, you can see how his bilingualism informs his writing craft and his writing style. As many of you will already know, as his friend and colleague, Mícheál is a native of a very beautiful part of the world, Baile in Skye in South Kerry, and of course is now residing with his family, his wife Jo, near the village of Castleconnell in County Limerick. His prose and poetry have been awarded first prize at Writers' Week in Listowel, and he's also won various Oireachtas prizes. He has toured Scotland at the invitation of the Scottish Arts Council, giving readings at several locations, including the Isle of Skye, with the internationally renowned poet Sorley MacLean. The Irish language publishing house Coiscéim has published 3 of his poetry collections, as well as 2 novels, the most recent of which won an Oireachtas prize in 2016. Revival Press, and we heard a moment ago from Dominic Taylor there. Revival Press, the imprint of the Limerick Writers' Centre, has published a collection of Mícheál's poetry entitled Healing Room. That collection was described as an intriguing journey from the pandemonium of the opening poem, The Attic, to the silence of Healing Room. Mícheál, like many other accomplished writers, such as Limerick writer Christopher O'Flynn, has had to make his living at the chalk face as a teacher. So he has taught in lots of places. His biography refers to Rosary Hill, Villiers, St Clements, and so on, Tutorial College, Mary Immaculate College in Limerick. And I was saying to Mícheál earlier, I mentioned on Twitter today that I was really looking forward to launching Redshank this evening, and I literally hadn't tweeted, like 30 seconds after I tweeted saying that I was launching Mícheál's book, and a former student came back immediately to say that Mícheál was the best teacher that he had ever encountered in his experience as a student in Limerick. And it's wonderful. I know as a teacher, I've taught for nearly 30 years now, and I know you get lots of grief, and people ring Joe Duffy and complain about our long holidays and so on, and the rest of it. But when you do hear a student coming back many years later talking about your skill as a teacher, it's humbling and heartening and so on. So congratulations, Mícheál. Mícheál brings the same level of dedication which he has given as a teacher to his writing craft. Redshank is, first and foremost, a beautifully written book. It's insightful, it's funny, it's sad, and it's poetic. Mícheál has a particular eye for nature, especially in the scenes set in Riversdale and Nutgrove. His ear for humour is also remarkable. And one of the things that really amused me as I was reading the book was that, and I'm not going to give too much away, but there are lots of conversations between various teachers, and there are various rivalries that come to the fore in the classroom, and lots of rivalries between teachers in the school that the novel is mainly set. And I often wondered when I was a student myself, I didn't particularly enjoy school, but when I was a student in school, I would wonder the odd time about the kind of conversations that teachers had behind the door of the staff room, and there were some insights, some very funny insights into that. His ear for humour is remarkable, as I said, and down to when you read the novel, down to the nicknames that the teachers give each other, and indeed the gossip that they trade in the staff room and between classes and so on. So it's a very, very humorous novel. I don't know whether Mícheál is a gardener or not. I'm not sure whether you're a keen gardener, but clearly his interest in nature, or here mentioned, swanning around the Shannon and looking at nature and so on. That really seeps through in the writing. And I just want to read a small extract which I think really captures this. So here we are on page 37. Dusk quenched Copper Beach, prunus and Chinese lantern alike, as he remained deep in smoky thought. In the monastic community, which had dwindled in 2 decades from 18 months to just 6, he was well liked. He was a compassionate friend to the others. Brother Matthew and he were best pals, and being the 2 youngest, the onus of caring for the older monks fell on them. He loved the monastic routine. He loved its quietness, its uniformity, and its garden. Within this simplicity he felt secure. But each morning, as he crossed over to the school, he was alone and fretful. Before going on stage, he would put on a mask of uncompromising grit, beneath which he would toil relentlessly until late afternoon, a bungling actor ruining his parts. Then on leaving the stage, he would indulge in the freedom of the garden for a while, Jekyll and Hyde, bipolar in a sense. A thick haze from the river blanketed the lower garden, where Brother Matthew seemed ghostly among the apple trees as his snips played sharp, irregular notes through the branches. his frail frame blended in naturally with late autumn's bleakness. He was completely in tune with the garden, or, as he saw it, with the great mystery of God. And really, throughout the novel, you have this beautiful writing which is so full of references to the natural world. I'm very interested in pantheism. I'm very interested in people who see God through nature, through the natural world. And I was really impressed with the way in which nature is a character, really, in this particular novel. I also liked the characterization in the novel, and this is something that Mícheál does really, really very, very well. The main protagonist, this teacher, poet, lost individual, Cathal, is really well drawn and interesting and a likeable, character. I was drawn to him. But so too are other characters like Gus, the canon, and this poor misfortunate woman, Margie Kerry. So you have to read the novel to find out about the trials and tribulations of Margie Kerry. And again, that's very, very well drawn. Mícheál expertly captures the nuances and tensions of small town or village life. It's appropriate also that the title of this beautiful novel is Redshank, or Coiscéim in Irish. The Redshank is also known as a red leg or a warden of the marshes. And the Redshank is a migratory bird who can sometimes frighten off other birds. To me, Cathal is like a Redshank, an outsider poet, caught between places both real and imagined. Redshank is a magnificent novel, Mícheál. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I encourage you to buy it, get it signed, read it. Cogortas Mícheál a Cara. Good market.
Sigur rouse a fad go háling, so our buíochas on as comprehensiveness agus áileacht a bhí sa chuirsí sin, so míle buíochas as sin. Iníon, Siobhan. Tá Siobhan chun teacht chun benacht Winter ó Siochrú a chur Ó Cadhain, so fáilte.
I'd just like to say a few words on behalf of Mam, Owen, Aoife and Colin and myself. First off, congrats Dad on the launch of your first English novel. May it be the first of many. We are very proud of you and delighted to be sharing this wonderful occasion with you. As most of you are aware, Dad has published 7 books to date, which is a fantastic achievement. Writing has always been a huge passion of his, and a memory from our childhood comes to mind that we would be walking in. Writing has always been a huge passion of his, and a memory from our childhood that comes to mind would be walking into the sitting room at home to find him in his chair by the fire, nahiming, as he'd say himself. You'd know the creative juices were starting to flow. As kids, writing was very much encouraged by both Mam and Dad. The other siblings were writers. This wasn't something that came naturally to me. However, I was known to recite the odd poem in Castleconnell Hall at the age of 6. So who knows, Dad? I might have given you a run for your money if I had stuck with it. Dad was a highly regarded Irish teacher for over 30 years, and to this day, when past students find out he's our dad, they still talk about how incredible he was as a teacher. It's always plain to see he made a huge impression on them, and I've no doubt that you've influenced a lot of their futures. I'm going to finish up by saying, as our dad, I'm glad of the values you have given to us. The most important ones to me being loyalty, the belief that you are no better or worse than anyone else, and above all, an undeniably strong sense of humour that can get us through anything in life. Gorv Mahagut a Cree agus Cogar de Gisarish.
Siobhan, bhí sé sin go háling ar fad go míle Mahagut agus is léir go bhfuil an dúchas ag brise arís trí Baile ní trí thula an Catanéacha. Mícheál féin, God, comes fiddling for all food. bad shoes, wasn't it? God, Claire to say on that, Cat Contos no. I worked in the room next door to this guy we were green, absolutely green young teachers. I hadn't a clue, you know. I mean, what in the 70s you did a thing called a H-dip, which was part-time, and it sort of slipped over little bits of psychology and comparative ed and other things like the history and the importance of the major institutions that were guiding education and all that stuff, you know. But in terms of dealing with Páistí, and Páistí nach bhfuil chun tosaigh, Páistí ar an imil, Páistí that were out on the fringes, you got nothing. You might be supervised by somebody who came from a quite elite school, and I had personal experience of being told, you couldn't teach in here, I'm getting out of here, you get out of here as quick as you can, nobody can teach you. But he could, that was the difference. So there was I next door, I think he was about a year ahead of me, listening to this kind of crafty sort of fellow who would go, kind of, hush, and they'd all shut up, like, whatever he had this gift, the craft, Jack. And I mean, he honed it obviously over the years, up and down. He honed it and he put it into his books as well, because he had a good ear for listening. So, Mícheál, apart from your early stages, I'm delighted that you continued the sharpness in your teaching career and translated it into the permanent, I suppose, the written word lasts. I remember launching a book similar to this some years ago, and we had the honour of Castletroy Ó, who looked at it and said, yeah, that'll be around in at least 50 years, possibly longer, if we take care of it, you know. So that was a kind of a reminder that the written word is so precious, and Dominic referred to it as well. It's there when we're gone, and it's not just for ourselves. So Mícheál has published so many books of poetry and novels as Sceilg agus as Baile. So Mícheál Ó Siochrú, Tarsus and Chuck, I speak kind.
Yes, good evening, and welcome everybody. Delighted we were in opposition to the rugby game and to Liverpool and Ronaldo and everything, but thanks for being here, we're delighted. First of all, thanks to my better half, Joan, for still being around, and thanks to all the family. Some of the grandchildren are here too. And thanks to Joan's siblings and my own for having travelled, long journeys, some of them, Kerry, Galway, Tip, other scale places. And it's great to see Peggy and Tom Tittle and all our friends from the Evergreen Rambling House. There are lots of survivors of old institutions here. It's great to see them. Survivors of Rosary Hill, of the vocational school in Castleconnell, and survivors of the St. Clement's regime inside town. So you're very loyal survivors, and I hope you'll all get the redress one of these days. My old friend Mícheál Liston is here. Mahanachar Mícheál, well, he's Canon Mícheál Liston now. He's come up on the road a bit. We go back a very long ways. And it's great to see all our neighbours and friends from around Lugan. The sort of thing, I go up a bit, it's a bit, that's better, a bit longer than I thought, that's it. You can hear that all right? Yeah. Yes. So, lovely Castleconnell, home, sweet home to me, smiling on the Shannon as it sweeps on to the sea. They're the first lines of a beautiful song composed and sung by our own local bard, Sean Haptigan. But I digress a little and I'll go back a small bit. I was in my early 20s when I got a bad notion to pack in a fairly good job I had at the airport. And I decided to chance my hand at a different trade that I knew absolutely nothing about. And I hadn't one day's experience at that job. And I arrived on the Castleconnell bus for an interview. And I walked up past the village, and when I came to the ferry, it was there I got my first glimpse ever of the beautiful River Shannon, of the broad, majestic Shannon, as Shane McGowan put it. And as I stood at the ferry that day, it was a lovely balmy evening in late August, and the waters were speckled with swans, and the village itself was hidden in the trees, hidden in sylvan splendour. And that splendour is still around Castleconnell to this day. And that would be thanks in no small measure now to the incredible work that the tiny townspeople do. John Hardyman and his small group of people, there's only 9 or 10 of them I think, they do Trojan work all year round. So that Sean Hattigan's lovely Castleconnell becomes lovelier each year. And it's a beautiful place. But back to that late August evening, I remember thinking, as I looked at the scenery, wouldn't it be something else to work for 1 year in this ambience before going back to where I came from, which was the plan. But, with a capital B, hundreds of strangers like myself have come to Castleconnell over the years, who have forgotten to go home. We all discovered it was very, very easy to fall in love with this picturesque little haven at the edge of the water. And a good number of us discovered that it was easier still to fall in love with the girls of Castleconnell. And this poem, this book, Redshank, sometimes is situated by the sea in South Kerry, but quite often it's situated in a fictional village called Riversdale, not far from Limerick City, on the bank of the river, and not too unlike Castleconnell, except I've tampered a bit with the physical features. I've pulled back the fall of the glass a bit, a good bit back. So now they're on the other side of the village. And I've injected a bit of power into them. They needed that. And there's a couple of little hills and so on. And in the book there are several visits to a beauty spot along the bank called a nut grove. And that's certainly not any different from the real nut grove. I was so enamoured of that beautiful place then that I couldn't be bothered to give it a fictional name. So the nut grove is the nut grove. And I read a small little bit, which is simply describing the beauty of Castleconnell, well, of Riversdale. Riversdale was enchanting. Cradled in a leafy embrace of outlying forested hillocks, it was lulled by Shannon's streaming music. Like most music lovers, it exuded an innate contentment, an aura of quiet jollity. In lush summer or in barest winter, it seemed at peace. A mile upriver, resonant rapids cascaded from moss-green rocks to frothed pools, and madly gushed in search of sea. But on entering the wider expanse at Riversdale village, lazy waters lingered as if awe-stricken by the surrounding magnificence, their music quietening to a slow, flowing serenity. Like someone who was loath to flow with the stream of life, they seemed to halt, to defy the river's natural course, and instead to dwell forever in its sweet splendour. On the opposite bank, a forest of beech, ash and sycamore enveloped the river. Beneath this forest ran a mysterious tunnel from which a whole family of swans would occasionally surge and glide through the reeds to rain the waters. This was the realm of swans, of music, of tranquility. a tranquility broken only when flapping wings swished water to send a swan into flight. And we take it off. Well, the main theme of the book is the poet. The poet striving to come to terms with her or his lot. In this case, with his lot. That the poet must be single-minded and individualistic and must be isolationist quite often. In other words, if you're artistic and it has to be accepted. I'll read just one other tiny little piece, and it is a humorous piece. In this, the poet hÚrdaill has a new poetry book, and he's delighted. And he is approached by 3 of his drinking associates. Now, these 3 fellows would have no interest whatsoever in poetry or anything literary. Their only interest would be in drinking. In fact, these 3 fellows now could very easily confuse poetry with the screech of a sow. But when the poet hÚrdaill buys them a drink, it is different. They start heaping praise upon his book, as though they were experts on its contents. And of course, this jabbering, the whole purpose of the jabbering is to try to wheedle another drink from him. I have to modify, it's on page 159. And I have to modify some of the words here to make it suitable for public reading. 159, about 12 lines up from the bottom. The 3 boys. Oh, for thank's sake, hÚrdaill, you're some shagging poet, boy. How do you manage to think up this kind of stuff? You didn't write all that on your own, did you? That takes a queer share of putting together, sure enough. Fair play to your head, you're some brainy whore. Jeez, man, these poems are shite hot. How do you write so many of them? When do you write? Where do you write? Hey, is there any poem here about us? Oh man, you're way ahead of the rest. No other poet would last piddling time alongside you. I tell you, these are the best poems I've ever seen, said one who was illiterate. You're some smart buyer with the words, huh? Tell me, how do you tolerate thick feckers like us? My grandfather wrote a grand poem about the kick he got from a mule, and I swear I've never seen its equal until I opened this book. Good on your lanyard, there'll be no stopping you now. Oh, hÚrdaill old stock, you're the soundest man that ever stood at a bar. Cheers, cheers, cheers. These are the people that make life interesting. Anyway, thank you, Jim. Jim. Jim came to Castleconnell shortly after myself, from Killascully. And we clicked right away because I always said that Jim was, what's the word now for Jim? Different. A breath of fresh air. Jim always spoke up for the underdog and the downtrodden, and we clicked from day one anyway. And the day Aileen Delan himself got married, it was a house wedding, and it was one of the finest ever, I think. Maybe we'll say no more about that next time. It was excellent. Jim Tamanaway did Gurbil Maharat, Asak Farity Yaludun. The very first book I had launched was back in the 1980s. And the person who officiated that night was the inimitable Seamus O'Kenada, God rest all the dead. Seamus was a lovable character. Many of the older people here would remember Seamus. Paddy Toohey, the historian, certainly does. He loves Castleconnell. He used to come out cycling to the river very, very often. But proud as a peacock of a city, I must think where I am, even born in the heart of it, in Mumble Street. Seamus was a renowned journalist with a Limerick leader, but he had a very unique way of operating. I was with Seamus one night, and a woman came up to him about an upcoming event she wanted to cover, and he took out a biro and a box of matches. And as she gave the details, he scribbled them down on the front of the box of matches, and on the back of it, and up on the side of it. And when they ran out of space, then he emptied out the matches and wrote on the inside of the box. As I watched in amazement. But the real amazement was reserved for the following weekend when I picked up the leader and saw this big half-page of a spread about that event in the floweriest, most colourful of language. Seamus was a genius. And he was a great friend of Joe and myself right up to the time of his death. And it is very important for both of us tonight that we have his nephew, Eoin Devereux. And you can see where Eoin Devereux got it from. With a DNA like that, he has to be a big literary man himself. So Eoin, gur bír mágad as Dr. Laura Kiola, agus é dhéanú go hálainn. Gur mágad. I still haven't learned how to switch on the computer. I can't even plug in the damn thing. So thanks to Mary Maloney of Clydruff, who does all the computer work for me. And thanks to Lot Bender of the Netherlands, who designed the cover of the book so beautifully. And Dominic Taylor. Before Dominic started making books 10 years ago, there was no publishing house in Limerick or anywhere near it. So Dominic filled a huge void and has done Trojan work over the past decade. And as you can see from the book and all his books, he does a thoroughly professional job. Thanks a million, Dominic, for that. I have an old friend of mine, Siochru Ó Siochrú, is there. We go back to UCC in the late 60s, long ago. But Siochru has travelled an awful lot, especially to Calcutta. He goes every year still. He's involved in the work started by Mother Teresa for the street children. And Siochru is launching his book about those travels next Monday night in our Sceilg. And to all of you, I hope you'll enjoy the read. And now you'll come across the odd rough word. Now, but no bad language, by the way. There's nothing bad in it. But there is the odd rough. Well, there's appropriate language. You know, appropriate. Well, like if somebody annoys the hell out of you and harasses you and won't back off, you'd hardly say, "Go away, you undesirable person," would you? You know? Or if somebody's totally obnoxious, or you wouldn't say, "Is your man a right old old boy?" You know, it's had appropriate language. Bad language now is what we hear from the Net Éireann people every night. That's bad language. Tomorrow there will be little in the way of sun, and there will be less in the way of rain, and the odd shower will be bubbling up instead of down. Or if you've got really bad language, listen to the sports commentators. The goalie seen it late, and he done the right thing. Or my favourite one, when your man got the ball, he should have went. On a different note, there is one very special person who would love to have been with us tonight, but who can't, due to ill health. Now, it's funny that every generation throws up its heroes, isn't it? Just a few fearless ones who blaze the trail for the rest of us. And this stern human being that I'm referring to is undoubtedly the hero of her generation. For the past few weeks, she has etched her name across all our minds, as well as across the pages of history. Single-handedly, she has taken on the arrogant ones, with their bureaucracy of lies and spin and cover-up and misogyny and indeed cruelty to women folk. But this woman's steely determination has captured the hearts of the nation, as well as the attention of international media. Her name and face have become synonymous with defiance and bravery. She has defied all dirty tricks, all underhand efforts to buy her over, to gag, to intimidate her. She is a most remarkable person, a woman of real substance. This lady is a true hero who has made hospitals, much safer in future, not just for the women of Ireland, but for all of us, I think. She's a next door neighbour of our Dr. Siobhan, who spoke a while ago, and great friend to hers. So, in her absence, let's salute the irrepressible Vicky Phelan. The thought just occurred to me, if Vicky ever wrote about the abuse and the ill-treatment she received at the hands of the arrogant ones, where would we have that book launch, I wonder? We'd have to rent out the finished art, I suppose. Anyway, Gormagh Galir. I forgot a foot there, Siobhan, didn't I forgot something. Siobhan told me to... Oh, there's a demonstration next Wednesday evening in Thomas Street in Limerick at 5 o'clock. Siobhan, what's the name of the organisation again?
Standing Up for Women.
Standing Up for Women. Right, and it's at 5 o'clock. So, good morning.
No, follow that, do you know, I was just thinking, weren't we lucky that your man came on the bus to Castleconnell? Kind of, you know, the Limerick area, and he landed from all the way down Sceilg, and bringing with him, of course, he did bring with him, it's on the head, the whole lot of it, the whole centuries of language, of insight, all that Gaeilge stuff. There's and at its freedom, it's further another anyway, just I think Mícheál has been the fusion of the wildness of Sceilg, the power of the waves down there, and blending that in with the gentle ripples around the Shannon and the swans and the little pools, and you get this lovely mix. And the book is also just this lovely mix. And then it deals with the human character as well, of bullying, of all these traits that are in society. And I thought I loved your finishing up, Mícheál, with the reference to Vicky, because we have to clean up public service, quality service, dedication, looking after people, looking after their health. So I think your book will help to stand against bullying. Your book will help to bring lovers of nature together. It will lift the spirit. So I'm telling everyone, go on, buy the bloody thing as quick as you can, because this is a historic document and it'll be there for years. Go real now,